In the great tapestry of professional wrestling, there are certain promotions and eras that stand out as almost mythical. The gritty, heat-filled brawls of the 80s territory scene, the hard-hitting, long-term story building of 90s All Japan and All Japan Women's. Even in the 2020s, we have the pure hero versus villain, soul-filled tags of CMLL, as well as the hyper-athletic, character-driven storytelling of AEW. But one era of pro wrestling you will inevitably hear about after just a few hours scrolling through online discussions is the famed indie scene of the 2000s. With ECW and WCW going out of business in 2001, the rise of the internet, and an increase in influence from around the world, North America would become a breeding ground for some of the greatest wrestlers of any era. You already know the names: Punk, Joe, Danielson, Styles, Low-Key, Hero, Aries, Steen, Generico. The list goes on, but one name that is guaranteed to be mentioned is one Christopher Daniels, who, on paper, has one of the greatest careers of any wrestler ever. I mean, he has matches in the WWF, the ECW, WCW, TNA, ROH, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Michinoku Pro, PWG, CMLL. Basically any promotion worth a damn in the past 20 years has seen Christopher Daniels in their ring. However, for whatever reason, he's never put on the same pedestal as some of his peers, despite having career trajectories parallel to them. So this got me wondering, why? Why is Christopher Daniels seemingly locked out of the GOAT discussion? What started as a simple bit of personal research for me quickly spiraled into watching 151 matches between the years 1994 and 2025, and this video is the result of me trying to justify giving so much of my life to the work of this man. So here we are. This is Christopher Daniels, The Fallen Angel, a career retrospective. Part 1. A slow start. Christopher Daniels would debut in 1993 and would spend the decade primarily working on the independent scene, specifically on the West Coast. Now, it's important to put the environment that Daniels spent his early career into context. With WCW and ECW going strong as alternate television wrestling to that of the WWF, there wasn't a whole lot of talent left to fill out the independent scene. Additionally, the idea of making a living outside of the big three promotions wasn't really a thing. The only two that truly became stars off the independents in this era were names like Sabu and Mick Foley, and even then they were picked up by the big leagues pretty quickly. So with this context established, it's no surprise that young Christopher Daniels wasn't burning the house down with five-star classics. Instead, the goal seems to be showcasing his understanding of the basics of selling and psychology before being picked up by bigger promotions for a few enhancement talent roles. There are a few highlights in here. The looser nature of ECW means his 1999 match against Rhino is more back and forth than what Daniels would usually get out of these brief TV appearances. Additionally, there's a really fun match on the Indies with Kurt Angle in 2000, but overall, Daniels ends off the first 7 years of his career without a truly great match, but luckily, the times would slowly start to change in 2001 with a little-known tournament called King of the Indies. The 2001 edition of King of the Indies is one of the most underrated and most important tournaments in pro wrestling history. Feels like a prologue to basically all of modern North American pro wrestling before companies like TNA, ROH, and PWG were coming up. So many wrestlers on the verge of breaking out competed in this tournament. Like, let me read out this list. This is all in one 16-man tournament. AJ Styles, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, Frankie Kazarian, Low-Key, Doug Williams, Adam Pearce, Brian Kendrick, and Christopher Daniels. That is 9 all-star names, along with a few other smaller ones that would circulate the scene around then. Many of these guys were also only 2 or 3 years in, and Daniels would meet the first man to truly get something great out of him in Low-Key. Key is such an interesting counterpart to Daniels. While Daniels slowly worked his way up to the spot, Key exploded onto the scene. Daniels is very much in the mold of the standard North American worker, while Low-Ki, with his influence from shoot MMA style and junior wrestling, was something entirely foreign to the American audience. Daniels has this intelligent, calm focus in his matches, like every move he does serves a purpose. Low-Ki, on the other hand, is a psychopath and a big ball of energy. This contrast of styles leads to magic in the ring. Low-Ki's intense style forces Daniels to pick up the pace, and Daniels' experience in control segments would force Ki to slow down and introduce some structure to his matches. This rivalry would bring them to the first main event of a brand new independent promotion, Ring of Honor, in a triple threat along with a plucky youngster named Bryan Danielson. I think this is the greatest match of Christopher Daniels' career. That's right, even better than that other triple threat in that other promotion that we'll get to. What makes this match from February 2002 so great is the contrast between the three men. Dragon and Low-Ki are these explosive youngsters with their martial arts backgrounds, Bryan as the scrappy mat worker with his grappling being not flashy but more straightforward, compared to Low-Ki, who, more so than any other wrestler I've ever seen, moves like a fighting game character. Everything he does has this over-the-top energy, his strikes are precise, and overall he just has this aura about him. Daniels being caught in between his opponents as this crafty veteran, picking his spots and exploiting the inexperience of his two opponents. This forces Danielson and Ki to team up briefly, which feels less like them being a cohesive unit, and more like them seeing who can kick Daniels the hardest. Daniels really is the glue that holds this match together, with his bumping and stooging serving to make the babyfaces shine as bright as possible. This is my pro wrestling bread and butter. Interesting characters with unique styles and personalities interacting with each other through pure violence. There's one spot where Danielson has Daniels in a submission hold. Ki kicks Danielson, which only causes more pressure to be applied to Daniels. It's a spot that would come off as kind of convoluted and goofy and kind of fall flat if it wasn't for the combination of Ki's stiff strikes, Danielson selling, and especially Daniels selling, make the spot just rule and really stick out to my mind. This whole match just fucks. It fucks so hard, and it's a perfect start to a promotion that would go on to be the highlight of the decade. This match, along with the following round-robin trio of matches between the three, would pretty much kick off Christopher Daniels' peak, which would go throughout the early 2000s. His work in the NWA, APW, and IWA Mid-South would introduce Christopher Daniels to what most would consider his greatest rival ever in AJ Styles. But more from him later. Christopher Daniels would also make his debut for TNA, which was quickly establishing itself as the number 2 promotion in North America. Seeing Low-Ki and Christopher Daniels in the same ring as Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors is an insane visual, even if the match is nothing special. Daniels was brought in to form a trio along with Low-Ki and an underrated 2000s wrestler named Elix Skipper. This tag team would give TNA some of their first iconic moments as the unit was called Triple X. And this would match with the Revolutionary X division, which focused on the fast-paced, high-octane action that was becoming more popular in this new generation of wrestlers. Daniels picking up the fast-paced junior style shows his ability to adapt and be versatile as a performer. After a year or two spent primarily in the tag division with great matches against the like of American Made, it was time for Daniels to truly shine in what I would consider his best career year, 2005. This is where we are reintroduced to AJ Styles, the best rival CD ever had. The chemistry between these two is unreal. Both men are quick enough to keep up with each other, but Daniels does a great job at building heat with very snappy cutoffs and heat segments. Styles is also obviously an incredible fiery babyface, and the raw athleticism of these two never gets old and is usually alongside a solid face-heel dynamic that keeps it from just being an exchange of spots. Their match from February 2005 might be my favorite singles match between the two. It's crazy how even in their first couple matches on the independent scene, you can already tell that they have just incredible chemistry. Daniels wasn't just a TNA wrestler in this period, however, as he would have both a solid match against a young Kevin Steen in PWG and continuing work in ROH against new names like James Gibson and CM Punk. However, it's in TNA where we find possibly his peak. Once again matched up with Styles, but this time adding Samoa Joe in a triple threat at TNA's Unbreakable. Unlike the ROH triple threat, which saw three guys on the verge of greatness, this match is three of the best fully at their athletic peak. There's nothing I can really say about this match that hasn't already been said. It just fucks. Once again, it fucks hard. I think Christopher Daniels might be the greatest triple threat wrestler of all time. I haven't given any thought to that statement, but it sounds true in my soul. It's truly one of the most influential matches in North American history. The DNA of every super indie match of the past 2 decades is essentially a poorly done cosplay of what Daniels, Joe, and Styles were able to accomplish. It holds up even after all these years and avoids falling into the pitfalls that people would fall into later on trying to copy this style. It's probably the greatest match in TNA history. 2006 would only continue to be filled with great matches between these three, both in a singles and triple threat sense. Daniels and Styles even form a solid sort of oddball tag team in wars against Hernandez and Homicide and America's Most Wanted. This, however, would sadly be kind of the end of Daniels' peak, as Samoa Joe and AJ Styles would continue up the card. Daniels would kind of get left behind. Yeah, for some reason or another, from 2007 onward, TNA kind of just stopped booking Daniels as a big main event talent, while Styles and Joe would get the rocket strapped to them. Daniels would remain in the mid-card, one that was slowly becoming weaker and weaker. Injuries would also take a hit on Daniels, and overall just felt like he was floating around in the company, only being revived whenever it was time to run another Styles or Joe match. These matches are still great, but don't feel nearly as revolutionary or as sort of hard-hitting as the original 2006-2005 work. TNA would also slowly become basically a retirement home for past their prime legends with inflated egos. This is where we get some of Daniels' worst work. I mean, I don't blame him. There isn't much he can do against Val Venus or a past his prime Shane Douglas. Pretty much all the highlights I have with Daniels between 2007 all the way to 2013 come from his brief appearances outside of TNA. A return to ROH in 2010 would see Daniels face off with a bunch of the names that had risen in the promotion after the departure of Daniels, Joe, Loki, and Punk. Matches with the likes of Kevin Steen, Davey Richards, Chris Hero, and El Generico all prove that Daniels definitely has some juice left, but it's being wasted away in a promotion that's more interested in whatever the fuck this is. It's a shame that by the time he's finally free from the clutches of the Impact Zone, Christopher Daniels is already kind of past his athletic prime. In his return to ROH, he would form a tag team with Frankie Kazarian, and this is where he would finally start to sort of reclaim his peak. The team of Kazarian and Daniels would be called The Addiction, becoming one of the top teams in an ROH tag division that was pretty loaded for the time. Names like the Briscoes, Red Dragon, Motor City Machine Guns, the Young Bucks, and the Kingdom would all be featured in the promotion, and right in the middle was The Addiction. While Christopher Daniels is much slower than he would have been a decade ago, his psychology and eye for a match structure shine bright in the tag setting. The work with the Machine Guns and Bucks throughout 2016 are the biggest highlights. The creativity of the Young Bucks and Guns mixed with the veteran instincts of Daniels and Kazarian is the type of in-ring chemistry that leads to these very fun tag matches filled with memorable spots. Every Addiction match has 1 or 2 spots that will stick with you, whether it's a creative cutoff or exciting hot tag sequence. The 2016 Triangle Ladder match is the kind of car crash spot fest match that reminds me of the days of Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys. Once again, Christopher Daniels, even in tag setting, fucking incredible triple threat worker. After having to sit through over half a decade of unmotivated TNA work and weird 2000s tribal art, it's very refreshing seeing Daniels actually work matches that aren't set up to fail. Clearly, Ring of Honor thought the same way because at their anniversary show, 15 years after main eventing the first event in the promotion's history, Christopher Daniels would finally win the big one, becoming ROH World Champion in one of the feel-good moments of the year. In just 105 days as champ, Daniels would put the work in defending the title in British indie promotion WCPW against Adam Cole, Zack Sabre Jr., and El Ligero. Then he would defend the belt in the US in a triple threat against Cody Rhodes and Jay Lethal before dropping the belt to Cody and also losing the follow-up 2 out of 3 Falls match. There's certainly some solid work in this run, but honestly, at this point in his career, a 20-plus minute main event match is kind of pushing it for an aging Daniels. The Cody matches in particular, while solid, don't meet the crazy high standards of a Ring of Honor main event. It's clear that while the title win was a great moment, Christopher Daniels in the late 2010s isn't really the guy you want to put at the top of the card, and he would certainly start slowing down from this point forward. In 2019, Christopher Daniels would sign with a upstart billionaire-promoted promotion in All Elite Pro Wrestling, and this is where he would spend the rest of his career, mostly as a veteran presence with Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky forming SCU. It's clear that Daniels is here to sort of give the veteran rub to a lot of the young guys who hadn't really worked in TV wrestling before. Daniels is obviously beginning to take a backstage role, but there's still a lot of solid TV matches for Daniels that I would recommend. Whether it's lower mid-card bouts against Danielson, Brody Lee, or Jay White, or as part of SCU against Jurassic Express, the Young Bucks, and FTR. Actually, the FTR match fucks. It's awesome. It's a incredible bit of tag psychology, Southern brawling. It's one of the most underrated matches from the pandemic era. His retirement match would come in 2025 against one Hangman Adam Page in a Texas death match. Daniels isn't known for his hardcore work, but in his last match ever, he gives it his all. Even in a retirement, Daniels puts over the younger talent and serves the role of mentor to Page as he tries to save the Cowboy from his descent into madness. It's bloody, violent, has some of that melodramatic sports entertainment stuff goodness. Getting a great hardcore match serves as a nice piece of legacy building for the Fallen Angel and serves as a perfect send-off to a storied career. Part 7. Conclusion. So let's go back to our question posed at the beginning of the video. Why isn't Christopher Daniels placed on the same level as his contemporaries like Joe, Punk, Danielson, or Styles? Well, the short answer is TNA. For some reason, Impact never saw him as a top guy, even though he gave the company some of their best moments and matches in the 2000s. Additionally, he never really gets that one big main event run that many of his peers would have. I don't think an all-timer needs a top ace-style run, but it definitely is an aspect of some of the top GOAT candidates. His peak is also relatively short. If I'm being generous, he only truly is at his best between 2002 2006, followed by resurgence from 2015 to 2017. Versatility is also an interesting topic for Daniels. He has a sort of universal chemistry. You can slide any archetype of wrestler into a match with him and they will probably result in something solid. However, he's never really had to work a variety of styles. Most of his work is either the standard North American house style, the Lucha Res-inspired indie work, or classic Southern tag matches. He only has a few notable hardcore matches and doesn't really have an iconic match where he has to work a different style. He doesn't really do a lot of crowd brawling or the strong style influence or lucha work or WWE style that guys like Danielson and Joe would do. Age is also a factor, as Daniels doesn't really get going until his early 30s compared to others of his era, who basically exploded onto the scene at a very early age. I don't want to end this video on a low note, however. Christopher Daniels is still one of the most underrated workers of all time. When it comes to physical execution, it's very rare to see Daniels fuck up a spot or for his offense to not land right. Additionally, the old school style of selling might be his greatest strength. Daniels has a cartoonish level of commitment to taking bumps, but it never becomes completely unrealistic. He definitely becomes more realistic in his old age. His best role is as a chicken shit heel, where you can see the Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels influence in how he sells during a babyface comeback. His selling in particular, the early ROH and TNA work, is often the highlight of his best matches. Another key piece to his case as an all-time great is longevity. Not many people can say they have a 4-star match in both 2002 and 2022. The matches on screen are the 10 I would recommend above all. I really enjoyed looking back on the career of the Fallen Angel. Even if it was frustrating at times, his career overlaps with one of my favorite periods in wrestling history, and I think he would edge out a lot of guys on a potential top 100 list. Not in the upper echelon, in the top 50, but definitely at least an honorable mention. Now, our next wrestling retrospective is going to be a big one. It's definitely going to take a while for me to do all the research and writing, because we will be looking at who many people consider the GOAT, and that is one Jonathan Cena. Bye.